Okay, welcome back to Freezing Anime Review Part 12. This is probably going to be my last video for this series. Well, I might discuss one of the spin-off books, but I don't really have many plans to talk about Zero or Love Stories. Might be interesting to talk about these, but not right now. Final video for now. This is discussing the most recent arc of the series, Exit Revenant. The first couple chapters are quite interesting. Well, I kind of briefly discussed chapter 202 in the last review. Next, chapter 203 actually has something that's been building that I'm sure readers have really wanted to see ever since these two become a couple, is that Salazar and Katsuma make out. Yep, they make out on a tree. And then interrupted by, and of course they had to make a session. Revenant shows up because Cavalier wants to launch a full-scale assault on the West Genetics facility, on the West Genetics school. And of course, Katsa basically is asking, the reasoning of why. Yeah, he basically is he is asked if he can investigate the reason why the Noble keep attacking. Okay? So basically he's sent to the other world. But he was now the way the machine is supposed to work is that it was supposed to send his mental body, not his physical one, but send him the whole thing. So he ends up in a parallel world where he runs into a woman who thinks he's Lewis, but not really Lewis. Yeah. And he runs into a woman who thinks is Salazar when he goes to a mansion. It's not really her at all. And meets up with a woman who looks like Maria Lance, like kind of is her. And lots of discussion here. And meanwhile, in the other world, Salazar is worried about Katsuma the whole time. And then she gets a contact from Cassandra, of all people, telling her that she does want her to help find Katsuma. And she's the best person to do it. So, and she got up a few allies, best allies you can think of. And the first person she goes to is Rena. Yep. He says, okay, I need your help. In exchange, you can be Katsuma's second wife. He's like, for real? He's like, yes. And he also recruits Elizabeth. Pretty much recruits the entirety of Team 13 for this mission. Basically recruits 5 people. So they go to Katsuma's grandfather. He, of course, explains the situation. And of course, he goes, oh, you got Cassandra's measures. Good. Hop right in. And, of course, Katsuma, while he's in this world, he basically tries to discuss this stuff when Maria gets interrupted by some person who doesn't like Maria very much. So he gets briefly imprisoned. And at one point, he nearly gets, I don't know what it looks like. It looks like he's about to be stripped by a bunch of beautiful women. Yeah, don't know what the purpose of this is, but it's different from how the series does the whole stripping thing. Usually does the women of the series. This is the first and probably going to be the only time in the series where the male lead gets this treatment. Then he, of course, breaks out. Maria, of course, is nearly, well, they've heard her as a goddess, but she's later, well, the guy who's trying to rebel against her tries to rape her. Yep, rape her. Just because he wants to. And she wants to restore the actual order. He wants to do his own thing. And that's when the 5 ladies show up. Katsuma is reunited with Salazar. They don't make out, surprisingly. And then something really odd happens. He gets sent to another, dimension, but not from this one, where he runs into Clifton. This, of course, happens toward the end of one of the most recent chapters come out. During the last, 2 or 3 chapters, where he kind of explains a bit more about, basically about the first ever Nova Clash, which apparently happened in May of 2015. So apparently in this world, it apparently happened from our perspective about 5 years ago. Okay. Interesting to say the least. And they pretty much basically have the beginning of the mention about the reason with the Cavalier organization. It was going to specifically be controlled by Greg Auer, who doesn't like the current people running it. And on the outside, there basically is a major battle between the forces of West Genetics and the Cavalier organization, which is not concluded. They don't really show the ending to it. Of course, this is where the manga stopped for some reason. And as far as I know, now I've checked on another website to see if they actually have any more chapters. But as far as manga is concerned, 225 is the most recent chapter that's come out for the series. I gotta say, Katsuma's time in the other world, in the world they think where the Novas come from, And pretty much they explain the purpose of the action novels themselves is that they're meant to help end wars and maybe lower the stigma of greed in a way. That's kind of how they explain it. And with a name like Exit Revenant, it sounds like this is going to be the final arc of the series, but it seems as though we ended off on a cliffhanger with the end of chapter 225. So we have pretty much an incomplete arc in a way. The arc itself is good. It's probably by far, like in the case of the last two arcs, much more. The writing is like, for the last three arcs I've reviewed, basically with the Busters, 13th Nova Clash, and this one, the writing is very strong in these particular arcs. Oh yes, very strong. There's not much fan service in this one. There's a little bit here and there, but at least that in the case of this one, I would say there's with the exception of the whole thing with happened with Katsuma, it's not really a lot of weird moments in here. But I think in the case of Katsuma making out with Salazar in the second chapter's arc, that was good. I like that part. That was fine. And the fact that Rena may become the second wife of Katsuma, that would be interesting. If, in fact, they bothered to conclude the manga. To say the least, yes. Interesting to see Clifton show up. Now, she has confirmed she is, related to Katsuma. Though she doesn't really go into too much detail. Because it just happens like when the last couple chapters released, and really, that's it. Okay, it's like when you get to this point, you kind of like, you read all these chapters, like, really? That's it? Where's the rest of the story? Well, I looked on the website, apparently the last chapter released just a year ago, and the thing is, with chapter 25, it's part of a book that I think it starts with chapter 222 and 225. It's basically volume 34, which has not been officially released in Japan for some reason. Now, as far as I can tell, this is not the end of the series because there's still more story here. I'm sure there probably is. It just seems quite odd, though, that it's been over a year, like exactly 1 year since the last chapter came out, and nothing's been resolved for the series. Nothing. So, what do I think of the series of Freezing? It's a good series, but the thing about the series is, I should warn you about it, it's a very mature series. There's lots of nudity, there's lots of sex stuff in it, there's some violence. Not much violence, mind you. Mostly in the manga, there's mostly like a lot of the R-rated stuff. It's very much a mature series. There's some foul language in it. Of course, the manga has got. The anime, when I watched the English stuff, didn't have much for foul language, but it had tons of fan service. I know some people were not really very pleased with how the anime adapted the manga. The first season, I think they did a really good job with it. Second season, I didn't like the fact they actually have the first two arcs out of the chronological order, but at least in the case of the second arc, the third and fourth arcs they have for season 2, they got those in order. And I think the voice acting was great for this series. Now, if you pick up exactly where the anime left off, which is basically the school president do arc, that's the best place to start where you want to pick up where the manga left off. You start from there and you get to here. This is roughly like a little over 100 chapters. Yeah, it is. It's roughly like, I think it's like, let's see, 120, 30... It's more like 100, about 33 chapters overall. It depends upon basically how long it takes you to finish reading it. It took me just a few days to get through this thing. It's good. But I'm not going to discuss any more about Freezing because I think I'm done for it for now until they decide to release more for the series. Now, what about the two side stories, Zero and Love Stories? I will read them. I don't know if I'm going to review them or not. It just depends on my mood. So tomorrow I expect to review for Naruto, because I probably think I'll probably finish up the Sasuke Chivo arc tomorrow. Possibly the first review for Dr. Stone, and a comic corner. Yes, I do have another comic corner coming up soon. So I expect probably 3 videos tomorrow, okay? But see you next video. Bye.